Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Daily Objective. And we've got some news you'll never, ever believe. There's trouble in the Middle East. Also, there's instability taking place in Africa. Also, COVID has not yet gone away and there's a new variant. Can you believe this stuff? I never thought I would read these headlines, but yeah, there's a new variant. I don't mean to make light of COVID, by the way. I don't know if you heard this, but I had COVID-19. I may have mentioned it once or twice on the show. I am expecting at some point to get it again since this COVID seems to evolve and it hurts. It is very physically real to me. I don't take it lightly, and I can see why an obese person or an old person could be facing their own mortality when hit with this type of chest pain attack that I went through. That all being said, I don't expect the whole world to shut down, for Christ's sake. Here to discuss this with me is a guy who is basically in the prison, in the belly of the prison state. I told him we got to get out of California, and he said, "Yeah, good idea, but it may be too late. They may be actually building a wall now to keep him inside." Please welcome Mark Pellegrino.
We are doing a little docu-series called Escape from LA, and it'll be my family's escape from this godforsaken pest hole.
Nice, nice.
But hey, you had COVID. I didn't know this.
Yeah, I don't know if I mentioned it or not, but yeah, I had COVID at the beginning of 2021. And yeah, I mean, even though I'm vaccinated, I expect at some point I'll have it again. I am happy to be young and healthy, and it'll be inconvenient and painful, but luckily for me, I don't need to live in complete and total fear. I can understand that for some people, this is a matter of life and death. This is a good reason, by the way, not to be obese. I hate to say it. I hate to be so tough with my love.
You're fat shaming people now.
I am, but it's for their own good.
And are you claiming that being obese is somehow less healthy than being, thin and lithe and conditioned?
I'm just saying COVID is a very bigoted virus. It tends to target those that are morbidly obese. And I can't obviously tell people don't get very old. Obviously, that's going to happen. But are we going to craft a world now where the young need to be sacrificed to the old? Now, I would say, and this is the philosophical portion of the show, so things like Social Security have already conditioned us to think that way, that the young are here to serve the old, that the young people's financial future, that their goals, that whatever it is that the young might want to do with their life ought to be curtailed, hampered, and maybe sacrificed altogether for the old. Social Security, various other entitlements, various policy, and of course now we are seeing it entirely naked and open that we saw it with the lockdowns, and we're seeing with the fact that the lockdowns are never really going away. So has anything changed in California? I'm getting now flashbacks of being in California where like every 2 weeks, it's like, okay, you can open. Okay, shut down. Okay, open. Okay, now stop, go, stop, go, stop, go. Have you seen any policy changes?
Particulars may have changed. I don't keep track of those because, they're so capricious that I would spend my entire day trying to keep up with all the various changes. But the essential idea that Gavin Newsom and his minions in the assembly have control over our lives and can tell us what to do has not changed. That's still there, and they're trying to work their idealism out on us every day. Hey, but listen, I heard something. I don't know if this is true, but I heard these variants that come out. The virus mutates, of course, and it becomes more contagious but less virulent. Is this true? So this latest iteration is not as deadly as any of the ones that came before.
That's what I've heard as well. Now, obviously, as your question sounds and as my answer sounds, we are not exactly experts on this topic. But what we are is smart, ambitious, thoughtful people who understand that COVID does exist. So now you mentioned the word capricious to describe these lockdowns. There is definitely a large element of caprice to it. Can we agree, though, that we are not in the camp of the people who say this whole thing is a hoax, that somewhere someone is just kind of issuing some sort of Big Brother style dictates like, okay, now there's a new variant and you're all under lockdown. Like there is some reference to the science that comes with these improper lockdowns.
A reference only to the degree that a virus exists and we have to do something about it. Now, the political reaction, I think, is is completely hysterical, and beyond the constitutional powers of any government. But it does have a root in the fact that this thing does exist. That's true.
Yeah. So, but I mean, it's unfortunate we need to make that distinction, because there is unfortunately a very vocal portion of the world we live in who basically treats all of COVID like it's either a complete hoax or something along those lines. So COVID exists. I definitely would not wish it upon anybody weak, old, or very fat, or with any health condition. It's very real, but however, it is I hate to say it, it is the problem of those weak, fat, or old people. They need to make adjustments to their own lives if possible. I'm not about to tell little kids that they're going to need to wear a mask. I'm not about to tell kids that they can never leave the house and make friends in real life. And I'm not going to tell adults that they can't go out and conduct business the way that they want to in affiliation with people that wish to affiliate with them. I mean, so the lockdowns, the original premise of them, or should I say the pretense, was we don't want to run out of hospital beds, because that was the only way I think you could sell it.
Itself, I might add, a result of Medicare and Medicaid gutting the system to such a degree that we would have a potential shortage of beds. Keeping the market out of the system is what made it a requirement in the minds of these political jerk-offs to start closing us down and locking us down to make sure that we still had capacity.
Now,
and we had tons of capacity. Come on, we had tons of capacity.
We have tons of capacity, and to speak nothing of the capacity we would have in a free market. So someone who heard you say that might think, oh, so the government giving beds to the needy and the old is a problem for you. But I think what we're getting at is the meddling of the government in medicine is what causes these shortages and misallocation, et cetera, and waste.
Well, and I'm going to say something politically incorrect. I don't think a neediness or age gives one a moral prerogative over someone else. I don't think they have a special legal privilege over someone else. We all have the same rights before the law. And when they do privilege somebody else by that standard, they are unprivileging another person. They're making it harder for another person to seek their own health and happiness.
Absolutely right. One man's need is not a mortgage on the ability and fruits of another. But since we are bleeding hearts, we do absolutely wish the best for good people. It is worth pointing out, capitalism would create abundance even more than we've seen in the world. It would create endless abundance, seemingly, for those people that are needy and elderly and all of that. So the government, under the pretense of trying to take care of the needy, has absolutely handicapped and devastated the medical industry. So this pretense that we don't want to run out of hospital beds too fast turned into started as a 2-week lockdown, turned into a 6-week lockdown, and now jump ahead to almost 2 years later now. We're seeing travel bans being imposed by various countries in response to this new variant that was discovered in South Africa. This new variant, from what I'm seeing, has milder symptoms, if any. I mean, like you mentioned, it's more contagious, but less lethal or less apparent that you even have it. I mean, eventually, we're just going to be in a world where we do treat every common cold like it's a cause for lockdown. It's going to be the self-fulfilling prophecy when people said, "Oh, COVID is just the flu," and they were wrong to say that. But we are going to get to a point where the flu or the cold or the mild allergic reaction, well, that's not contagious, but anything that's mildly contagious will be treated as a cause for lockdown. Everyone needs to wear a mask. Everyone needs to stay home, and that is impossible. We cannot live that way. It's absolutely sacrificing the needy and the healthy it's sacrificing the able and the healthy to the needy and weak. And it's wrong. It's wrong.
It's wrong, but no matter how often we say that, it's like we're yelling into the wilderness.
It does feel that way. It does. So here to show us moral support are some super chatters. Marilyn with $2. Thank you. Marilyn again with $2 says, I did mention having COVID. All right. I guess
I don't think that's right.
whatever. Yeah, she
Yeah,
misremembers. But thank you for the super chat. Roland with 4.99 euros says, Rucka had COVID. Well,
there we go.
I hope you were sitting down. Regina with €2 says, hey, you. Enric with 4.99 American says, so get booster now or wait to see if booster modified for Omicron. That's the new variant.
I guess Iran has been saying to, not that I live and breathe by whatever Iran says, but he does make a coherent point that you should, it might be a good idea to wait till this, we get a real beat on this new variant and then make the booster that can sort of attack the new variant. My wife is getting a booster in Paris. I suggested that to her, that she wait until it can incorporate the new variant, but she's going to get it tomorrow. So,
do you know if she's dealing with lockdowns and all types of shenanigans with this new variant?
No, I don't think there's lockdowns in Paris, but there are apps that you get checked every time you go into a public place, like a restaurant. So you have to show this health app that you are negative and or vaccinated, and then that registers with some central place somewhere. They can cross-check you, or if an outbreak happens in your area, they can warn you electronically, and they do that pretty much everywhere.
Some of it's creepy, some of it makes a little bit of sense. Overall, we need it all to be privatized. So we are ill-equipped to deal with nature and its various plagues. We are ill-equipped unless we unleash the capacity of the minds of the best amongst us in order to produce, to devise, and to trade freely. Just left in the hands of the lobby system and the overarching state, our lives are going to be short, painful, and uncool. We're not going to have cool lives. We're not going to be able to do cool stuff. We cannot live this way. I mean, we're, in a mixed economy, all of us today living wherever we are, a mixture of capitalism and state controls. We are ill-equipped to live without capitalism, without liberty. We need scientists to be funded privately. We need companies to be working around the clock to provide us either with both with the vaccines that we desire, or with the technology that helps us stay safe, and just with various opportunities that allow us to earn a living and to enjoy our lives. This type of virus should show us clearer than ever that capitalism is what we need, that the privatization of science and of medicine is what we need more than ever.
And yet, has it?
And yet,
I feel like it's shown us that fact. We've seen how incompetent the political class is. We see how hysteria drove governors in various states to shut down their economies, and how difficult it was for them to buck that hysteria and actually stand firm in liberty, with the result being, still a pandemic that swept through the country. And many people did not recognize this as incompetent government. Many people look at the economy, the state of the economy today, with its supply chain shortages, its employment supply shortages, its rising inflation, as a problem of COVID, not as a problem of the political class that did this to us in response to COVID.
Yeah, and this political class, I would say, emerged from a culture that misunderstands the proper role of government. So to them, a good, competent government does these things well. It tells people what to do in an effective way. It maximizes prosperity in a certain way. The proper role of government is to protect your right as an individual to speak and to keep the property, to produce and own your property, and to trade it with, enforceable contract, and to, protect you from various threats, physical and fraudulent threats. Beyond that, the government's job is nil. So, but this misunderstanding, this thought that the government's job is to elevate our lives somehow, or to protect us from chance, protect us from bad luck or anything like that, to protect us from things that have nothing to do with the violation of rights. this misunderstanding of the role of government has brought us to this place where some people see this virus as proof that we need more government, that we need a better government, not a different role of government. So it's unfortunate that something as clear as this virus can't teach people the lesson, because the fact is they don't learn simply from experience. Just like with communism, so many people left the Soviet Union thinking, okay, the answer is like a different type of communism, or a different, just a slight different leaders in charge, something like that. Philosophy is where these lessons are going to be taught.
Yeah, and morality dies hard, right? It takes a lot of work and effort to overturn an ethics that you've ingested and digested and made a part of your life. It's really hard to overturn that.
Yeah. And some people uninitiated might hear you say that, and they'll say, yes, you're right. We need people to be less selfish and think about the greater good more. But in fact, here at the Ayn Rand Center UK, we're trying to make the point that altruism, this otherism, this moral premise that virtually everyone holds in the world, that says your life, it's only yours as long as everyone else is okay with it, that your basic moral calling is to sacrifice for others. That is the ideal to hold in mind. That premise has brought us all of the bloodshed, all of the dictatorial authority, and as we're seeing now, the lockdowns, the regulations, the various impediments to people's happiness that are being imposed and supported by a populace that thinks their lives do not belong to them. So people need to be more selfish, entirely rationally selfish, I would offer. Allison with $5 says, I got the booster from Moderna last Tuesday. Will you know how my guinea pig, I will let you know how my guinea pig self goes. So far, just sleepiness and a sore arm, and that has passed. Yeah, when I got the when I got the vaccine, I felt bad for like a day or less. I was fine. Thank you, Marilyn, for the $2. She says, government brought us the food pyramid. Yeah, I remember, as a kid, I would see that food pyramid. So apparently that was wrong.
Which has been the cause of, the epidemic of diabetes that we see through the United States. Yeah. So really, the government shouldn't be entrusted with your health. Your health is your own. And I would have this argument with people all the time. Actor friends of mine would rage on Facebook about people not wearing masks. I'm like, hey, pal, your health is your responsibility. I'm not wearing a mask for the betterment of my community. If I'm wearing a mask, it's because I think it's the right thing for me to do. And if you're in a place where people aren't wearing masks, you have the freedom to leave. You have the freedom to turn around to somebody who's too close to you and say, can you please get 6 feet away from me? Because I have concerns about my health. It's like we live in a world now where we've sloughed off moral agency to such a high degree that we can't even take responsibility in our everyday lives for anything that is ours. And now, what's more yours than your health?
Absolutely correct. Now, someone might answer you and say, well, what if you tell someone, please stand 6 feet away, and they say no? Or just generally, I could see that causing conflict and all types of, conflict basically covers it, where one guy says, hey, please give me some space, and someone else says, no, I need this space. You stay home if you're afraid.
I need this space.
I
can't conceive of somebody that irrational, but I've seen enough, YouTube encounters with people who are insane to know that somebody out there would probably say something like, now they might not say it to me because I'm 6'3", 210 pounds and could, probably choke them out, but they usually listen to me when I say, can you please back up? I'm sure somebody who doesn't have that going for them might be threatened. I've heard similar cases, but move, walk away, go to another check stand. If you have somebody who's not willing to, give you your terms and conditions for being near them, then you just don't associate with those people.
So we need to privatize property. We need respect. We need people to be rational and thoughtful. We can't have people being emotionally driven and just completely just acting like COVID is one big hoax and completely being inconsiderate. Also, people need to understand that their own weakness and susceptibility does not create any obligation on other people. I know there are some situations that are going to be difficult, but again, this is why we need more capitalism, and people need to be more rational, not less. We have a lot of people in the world now that are saying that these companies requiring vaccination are actually using force. They're initiating force because those companies are in some part under duress by the government, and also those companies maybe have contracts with the government. Just in various ways, they draw this connection that says that private companies requiring vaccination of their employees is a form of force. Now, I don't see it that way. Even in a mixed economy like ours, the only way to move towards freedom is for companies to have agency over their own policy, and we need to move towards capitalism. We can't start treating companies like they are the government.
We think that way because we don't have an emotional standard for force, and the emotional standard for force for these people is they're making me do something I don't want to do, and it makes me feel upset. As opposed to the real notion that, well, you have the capacity to say no and leave. And that part of the great thing about being in a free society is that we only bind ourselves to people we choose. And that means we have conditions that are similar, that overlap with each other. And if they don't, we are free to leave. Now, that may make you feel unhappy because somebody else has different conditions than you, but that is life. That's life. You can't force their conditions on your conditions on them. Under the circumstances of employment, this is what they're saying their conditions for relationship and association are. It's what any individual has a right to do.
Yeah, that's true. Allison with $5 says Georgia government was so bad with getting vaxes out that we were the last U.S. state on the charts of most vaccinated by population. DC was ahead of us. Yeah, and probably people's attitude towards the vaccine is a big part of what you end up seeing. I mean, we had Yaron Brook here. It seems like forever ago, but it was during the era of the vaccine being introduced. And over in Israel, the Palestinians were largely suspicious of this vaccine. The Arab world in general, speaking culturally, has a high propensity for conspiracy theories. They, of course, were the first to say 9/11 was an inside job.
After they got done cheering, of course.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. And then the vaccine, of course, is highly suspect. So many of them weren't taking it. And of course, we've got counterparts of that throughout the civilized world, throughout the Western world, people not wanting to be vaccinated, either because they want to defy authority. Now, defiance of authority is a good thing, but at what cost? Or just because they're getting their science from the Alex Jones show or some equivalent. They don't actually respect science. Again, just like I said, business are being seen as a wing of the government. They see all scientists and all science as just government press releases, which is not the case. We do largely have a reputable science community.
Well, but don't you think that the epidemic of conspiracy theories has happened because both the media has become so politicized that it's clearly in one camp and clearly not being honest, and hasn't been honest for 4 years. And the scientific community has been so politicized in various aspects, from climatology to now this virus. Wherever there is a chance for the political class to expand itself and to use science as a reason for expanding itself, it has done so and politicized science, and people distrust science now. They distrust the media. They distrust their information sources. But isn't that somewhat rational given their track record?
Somewhat, yes. And calling it rational, I think, may be a stretch at a certain point. I mentioned the Arab world, the Muslim world. When Muslims speak benevolently to Christians trying to convert them, by persuasion, they say, you're not renouncing anything. You're only taking on more, you know, like no one's asking you to get rid of Jesus, but you're just bringing on Muhammad, etc. So everything you just said is true. I'm not disagreeing with it, but I'll add to it that the reaction to the left and to the establishment has not been rational. It may have been level-headed to a certain point for some time, but they've gone so far in the direction of this charlatan muckraking, if I'm pronouncing that right, just complete and total riling up of people's emotions and encouraging conspiracism, encouraging belligerent rebellion, that we are at a point now where there is a thriving media that you can basically call mainstream. I think conservatives are the mainstream on the internet. And someone could say, yeah, well, they're reprimanded by big tech. Okay, tell that to whoever's crunching the numbers for the Daily Wire, how many ungodly millions of dollars they're making. Tell that to Alex Jones' accountant. I think if you were to ask Alex Jones's CPA, he would say right-wing lunatic conspiracy media is doing perfectly fine. So there's definitely a gargantuan industry and audience of people that are reacting to the establishment left. And they've gotten so big and so dangerous and so closed off to reason that we could basically call them like a version of the mainstream or a part of the mainstream. That's
Sure.
how I see it.
I agree with you. I agree with you.
Cool. Thank you, Jonathan Honig, whoever that is, for 99 cents. Over in the non-super chat. So this is, you know, people, you know, the regular chat. These people are, you know, when they start, people like this move to California is when we say, I don't know about this, it's time to move. The types of people who don't super chat, but just leave regular comments. Fabian says, companies requiring vaccination is not forced, but it is outrageous. These vaccines do have side effects. Even if bad ones are mild, it might have been reasonable when we assumed the vaccine might stop transmission, but that is completely disproven by now. I don't know about that last part, but the first part, it's very unfortunate. It definitely can devastate many people's lives to have that requirement, but I'm not sure it is outrageous from the company's perspective. Some of them, they really want to keep COVID out of the workplace. And for one reason or another, they want to have vaccinated staff. What do you think of that, Mark?
I don't think it's outrageous. Yeah, I mean, maybe filling your hotel room up with green M&Ms is outrageous, but you know, responding to a pandemic, wanting to keep your workforce as healthy as possible, that's rational. And look, we can't judge those contexts unless we know completely the context that they're making their decisions on. So I think the blanket statement claim they're outrageous sort of falls into that camp we were talking about earlier.
And just
little bit of the conspiracy-esque point of view.
And just like some people, and Fabian's correcting, he meant to say rare, not mild. When he said mild, he meant to say rare. The bad side effects are rare, he says. But just as some people are more vulnerable to COVID, and that doesn't mean the rest of the world needs to be under lockdown, so too, some people really are not equipped to handle this vaccine for one reason or another. That, again, that doesn't mean no one can now require it in the workplace. It's sad. I mean, it's unfortunate. I can imagine it being very inconvenient, to put it lightly. But people, it's not necessarily an unreasonable thing for companies to require of their employees and or customers, and it's also their right. Jade with $5 says, "Is this pandemic ever going to end?" Rhetorical question.
No, I mean, I think what we have to, it will end in the sense that we call it a pandemic, and it's just going to become a virus that's with us forever, that we deal with like the flu, you know, and for some people, it'll be a more severe version of that. But soon we're going to have antivirals in the market that will probably make the shots a moot point. But soon we'll be dealing with this every year. And I think part of the problem with the left is that they're considering it an ongoing pandemic, and they focus all their attention. They always seem to focus their attention on one dimension of something to the exclusion of all other contexts. And that seems to be where the left goes wrong. And the sooner they understand that this virus is now among us forever, here it is, now it's about carrying on with life despite it, the better it will be for the rest of us.
Yeah. By the way, this reminds me of the new South Park movie slash double long episode that they released on Paramount Plus. What a success story, by the way. Talk about capitalism just creating opportunities no one could have imagined. These two college friends created a show with paper mache back in the 90s. It went viral with VHS tapes being passed around, and then people emailing each other this video in the 90s. Next thing you know, they got the biggest show on earth, the biggest movie on earth, and their biggest merchandising line on earth. And here they are now. They've got to deal with both Comedy Central and Paramount to just continuously release content. So they just released their first Paramount Plus movie. Very funny. It takes place like 40 years in the future, where the vaccine, the pandemic is still like things are finally getting back to normal in 40 years, and then word gets out. Wait, but there's a new variant, and then everyone needs to run back home and lock up and all that. It's very funny in my opinion. All right. Now okay, Jeff, thank you for 10 Canadian dollars. Canadian money is hardly worth pausing the show for, but nonetheless, I'm kidding. Thank you for that. So I auditioned for a commercial, self-tape, and one of the questions, they ask like, are you available for the shoot dates? And then, are you vaccinated? And then it said, it won't affect your booking. It's just the producer just wants to know. Isn't that kind of a weird thing for them to say? Are they worried about getting sued or bad PR or something like that? Since you're an insider, I mean, we're talking shop here. What do you make of that?
I'm sure they have to say that it doesn't really matter that we're asking this question because they don't want you to sue them for that type of discrimination. But shoots are extremely strict. They have an entire COVID bureaucracy and very, very strict protocols and zones in which people rest, and only people with a certain vaccination status and testing status can get into zone A, where the talent is. And that's how they track and trace. I know that on American Rust, they had cameras, like those Go cameras, everywhere on the set, so that if a breakout happened, if somebody got COVID, they could track and immediately all the people that person had contact with and shut down that aspect of the production. And they did it quite well.
American Rust being a show that you worked on recently, not to be mistaken for Rust, the Alec Baldwin production.
Right, American Rust is the Showtime show. It's out now. Check it out. Rust is a Western starring Jensen Ackles as well from Supernatural.
Wow.
Yeah.
The band is back together.
I have a little piece of trivia with respect to that movie and the thing that happened to it, but I won't say it here. I'll tell you privately.
Oh, very nice. Well, in that spirit, we should jump over to Clubhouse. Thank you, everybody, for watching today. Thank you for all the super chats. This was nice. And thank you all for being here with us. Coming up at 8 p.m. UK time, it's HBTV with Harry Binswanger, and the episode is The Mechanics of Free Will.
The Mechanics of Free Will.
Is that your Harry Binswanger impression?
Harry Binswanger impression.
Bring your A game, everybody. You think you know philosophy? You're not going to want to. You're not going to want any trouble. He's the real deal. Coming up then at 10 p.m. UK time, it's Method and Madness with Larry and Ibis, and today they're interviewing the great Ankar Gate, and the subject is systematic racism, still here or long gone?
Ooh, I got to see that.
You got to, and it's coming up at 10 p.m. UK time, whatever that means to you. All right, everybody, meet us on Clubhouse here in a moment. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
And we'll be back tomorrow for the Daily Objective. And goodbye.
Au revoir.